calls that I take on the hotline are from police departments, sheriff departments, highway patrol units, and so on and so forth. I couldn't begin to tell you how many calls I've taken from the police. 2 weekends ago, there were 6 police down in Louisville, Texas, who were looking at 6 objects that had landed in a field. Excuse me, I mean Highlands, Texas, which is, I think, not too far from Dallas. Highlands, Texas, a man, on a Saturday afternoon, a man and his wife were out barbecuing about 5:30 local time. They saw 6 bright objects land in an open field across the Highlands Reservoir, about a 900-acre reservoir. They called the police. The police didn't have anything else to do on that Saturday night, so 2 policemen drove out in their cruiser, and they saw them. They called back to headquarters. Headquarters dispatched a second cruiser with 2 more police. So now we have 4 police and the 2 original observers looking at these objects. And then the captain and lieutenant of the police unit got involved. All told, 6 officers saw those objects in Highlands, Texas. The next morning, Sunday morning, at about 4:20 a.m., 2 police officers in Bonham, Texas, were on a speed trap on I-82, apparently an interstate, although I don't know the highways well down there. At 4:20 a.m., they saw, here we go again with another one of these streaks, a streak of light coming in from the west, which they took to be a very bright meteorite. Well, a few minutes later, they stepped out of their cruiser to stretch, and they looked to the northeast behind them. Their cruiser was facing to the west, and just in time to see a brilliantly bright light in the northeastern sky, much bigger than a star, although smaller than the moon, they reported. While they were watching it, it suddenly accelerated to the south and disappeared in 2 seconds. Wow. It was gone.
And these witnesses, you are getting credible witnesses. These are are trained observers. These are officials for the cities and counties of the areas of which that are calling you, and yet we don't see this on the ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN news.
Isn't that an interesting question, Cosmo?
It's getting out of hand.
Why it is local stations run by individuals like you who are handling this very, very important issue. And everything I've said and will say tonight on your program, I can back up with tape-recorded telephone conversations. But isn't it interesting that our national press won't touch this subject with a 10-foot pole, except in Hollywood?
Well, I think that ties into what I was mentioning with you just a moment ago about them officially not taking reports.
Yeah.
So if the government is officially not taking reports on this, it means one of 2 things. They totally discount the possibility that extraterrestrials ever could land here,
yeah,
or they already know everything they need to know and they don't need to take any more reports.
Or there's a third one. I agree with your assessment entirely. There's one other possibility that has to be considered, and I don't advocate this. Let me get my bona fides and my defenses up here. But they not only do they know, as you've suggested, but it is somehow involved with the phenomenon. I am convinced now, principally because of the last 3 months on the hotline, I am convinced that human beings are being abducted. I am convinced that animals are being mutilated by creatures from other parts of the galaxy or universe. I am convinced that grain is being damaged with respect to crop circles.
Sure.
And yet our governments, our law enforcement officials in many cases, are washing their hands of it and doing nothing. There's something mysterious going on here, in my opinion.
Now, have you been in contact with any of the researchers, such as Linda Moulton Howe, who has been on this program, who does have the finances and the availability to travel all over the world? Jay, did you have something?
I was going to ask about any accounts of crashed saucers. I believe you have the Leonard Stringfield we're showing on camera, the number 7.
To answer your question, to date, we have taken no calls, no serious calls suggesting crashed saucers. We've had a number of calls reporting craft have come to ground. In fact, we've had some here in Seattle, some in Oregon, just all over the United States. We did take a call about 2 weeks ago from the Arizona area, Sedona, if you know Sedona, Arizona.
Sure.
It's sort of a hotbed of counterculture type people.
Absolutely.
And it is being reported down in Arizona that a portion of the Grand Canyon is closed off.
What?
And there's apparently black helicopters without markings that are flying into and out of the area quite frequently. I don't know how credible a report that is, but in view of the fact that I just got a list of calls that have been taken out in Indiana by a regional UFO reporting line, a hotline, if you will, and I saw that in March of this year that same report was reported to the Indiana hotline. So it may be one of those things that is just circulating that crops up again and again, but whether there's any merit to it or not, I don't know. I have turned the information over to investigators.
Well, Peter, what I'm showing to our audience right now, Dennis handed to me about 3 minutes before airtime. Dennis?
It's the latest status report from Leonard Stringfield, available through MUFON, that deals with crash retrievals, and there's some interesting information on a 1942 crash in there.
A 1942. I may have heard about that. Where was it, Dennis?
Georgia.
In Georgia? I believe there have been a number of incidents, although this is not my specialty. I can only comment or recite other information that I've gained through my reading. But there have been a lot of things occur that are very mysterious. For example, Kecksburg, Pennsylvania, the 9th of December, 1965. This has been on Unsolved Mysteries.
Well aware of that, yes. Continue.
There have been a number of things throughout history. The crash down in Texas during the last century.
The one I've been mostly interested in, and also dealing with crash retrievals, I believe Kevin Randall, when he was on the program here last, it's almost a year now, Dennis, hasn't it? Since Kevin Randall was on, Kevin Randall and Don Schmidt. Well, I believe Kevin Randall was on the show December 5th of last year, and then both gentlemen were on this program later on. I believe Kevin Randall is starting to pen a book about other crash retrievals. The one I'm interested in would be the Kingman, Arizona crash.
Yes, I've heard of it, but I don't know very much about it. My only specialty right now is the UFO Reporting Center in Seattle and the stuff that comes in here.
Absolutely.
Have you had any calls from Area 51?
No, we haven't. We've taken a number of calls from down in the Las Vegas area and also from Southern California, suggesting night lights streaking across the sky, but where they come from, where those lights have come from, I don't know. Whether they've come out of Area 51 or not, I have no way of knowing. In view of the volume of calls we take from all over the country, I would not be, I have no reason to believe that those objects would have come out of Area 51, no.
Peter, what percentage would you say are multiple witnesses compared to just one witness?
That's a very good question. I would say somewhere between 1/4 and 1/2 of the calls that I take on the hotline. Easily, I would reassess, and I say at least 1/2 of the calls I take are multiple witness calls. Probably 1/3 or 1/2 of the calls I take are multiple object calls. I don't have really, even 1,000 calls is not enough data points to be able to say anything for sure. But in the future, as I expand the hotline from one telephone line, my objective, gentlemen, is to build it into a communications center in Seattle, such that any American who sees a UFO will instantly know where he should call to report the data, and at which point we will quickly assess the data, do a quick screening of it, and then get it into the hands of an investigator within minutes.
And we will touch on that reporting here in a moment.
Fine.
Mr. Davenport, I would like to propose to you of photos or films that you receive after you have authenticated them as best as your capabilities are, if we, in conjunction with the Cosmic Connection, could get some kind of cooperation back and forth between yourself and mine to have you on as a guest again, show the information, have you in studio so we could work in harmony, sir.
I would welcome the opportunity to appear again at your convenience. Let me say, with regard to the films, if we get a report that somebody has filmed a UFO, we do not ask them to send the film to us. We will put that individual in touch with an investigator in that person's state, and if it's really interesting film, we'll try to put them in touch with a photo analyst. MUFON and CUFOS both have some pretty good photo analysts. I'm thinking of Bruce Maccabee, for one.
Sure.
I've sent some people to him who had some, in fact, this case from Long Island, New York, that turned out to be a blimp. It may have been Bruce Maccabee, who's a MUFON member, Mutual UFO Network, of which I am a member, by the way, as well, up here in the state of Washington. I've been director of investigations for MUFON in Washington, done a number of things.
By the way, sir, Peter, at the beginning of the program, did you state that you were a scientist, right?
Well, I didn't give any of my background, but let me take a second to let your viewers know
Please.
A bit about my background.
I was most impressive.
I'm sort of I'm a ragtag type character. I have pretty good education in biochemistry and genetics is my specialty. I've worked in the biotech industry up here in Seattle and founded what I think is the only profitable biotech firm up here in the Northwest, or in the Seattle area. I was the first president of that company. In addition, I'm a Russian translator. I was trained in Russian by the U.S. Army back in the late 60s, and I've made my living as a Russian translator for a number of years. I've worked as a flight instructor in gliders for about 10 years, have a lot of experience in aviation. And I've worked as a commercial fisherman and just done a lot of things. I've taught at the University of Washington in international business. In addition to some training in biochemistry and genetics, I also have an MBA degree in international business and the principles of finance. So I've been all over the map.
Sure. Now, Peter, we're showing your post office box address with the phone number for the UFO hotline. We have also stated on the screen these are recent sightings only, because I heard you mention this last night.
Oh, that's a big help, Cosmo.
Absolutely.
I appreciate your consideration on that point. Let me explain for your viewers, if I may, what we like to do and how we like to operate for the time being. Again, resource permitting, we're looking for funding and a place to expand this right now. But currently, the hotline is just one telephone line, and we like to reserve it for current sightings. That is, sightings within the last several days at most, or say at most a week. The last time I was on the radio down in Los Angeles, I spent 8 hours taking phone calls from people.
I believe you were on the Mark and Brian show. I believe the listeners, the viewers of the program will recall you were on the Mark and Brian show recently.
That's correct.
And how were you received on there?
Extraordinarily well. I knew that I was going to cause myself a busy day by appearing on radio down in the Los Angeles area.
Absolutely.
Because there had been a lot of sightings just prior to my 10-minute interview on Mark and Brian show. But I spent 8 hours on the telephone that day taking calls from Los Angeles, from Portland. It's a syndicated program, so I took calls from all over the United States. And I was a busy dude that day. So I would respectfully request of your viewers that they not use our hotline for informational purposes, because if they do, it blocks it out for current sightings. And again, we take about 24 sightings a day in some cases.
Now, would there be any need to give out a fax number?
I don't have a fax that's currently working.
All
That's
right.
something we hope to have up and running within the next month or two, and people will be able to get that number in the future through the hotline number. But let me make one other pitch, if I may, Cosmo.
Please.
One of the things that I am going to do as director is start collecting past sightings. It is extraordinary how when people call in a current sighting, more often than not, they'll say, well, way back in '06, I saw something over Salinas, Kansas. And what we invite them to do, we always ask for a brief written report from the people we talk to on the hotline. What we're doing now is collecting past reports, written reports, that we're requesting people mail to our mailing address up in Seattle. And we're going to start building a database. This is something that would have been very difficult to do before the advent of the personal computer.
Sure.
But now you can put a gigabit of memory in a box,
right,
and you can put many thousands of reports in a small computer.
Now, Mr. Davenport, Peter,
yes,
you will please tell us now how an observer can properly fill out a form.
Oh, thank you so much. There are good reports and there are bad reports.
Right.
And I would love to respond to your invitation by encouraging your viewers, if they see something unusual, the first and most important thing is to freeze the facts in place. Where the observer was standing, what direction he was looking, most of all what time it was, what they actually saw, the color of it, the size of it, and so on and so forth. Was it moving? Was it stationary? Very often we get people who are not familiar with the night sky. They look at twinkling stars, and twinkling stars always seem to move
just
around.
Just above the horizon, right.
Yeah, frequently close to the horizon, that's correct. But if a person sees something, even go to the extent of writing it down on the back of a check or on a dollar bill or something like that, to freeze the facts in place. Record the names of people who might have seen it as well. If people are stopped on the highway, take license plate numbers. Try to get the people's names and telephone numbers and addresses. That's the single most important thing that a person can do, and then write it down.
That bit about the license plate numbers, that's the first I have ever heard of that, and that makes so much sense.
Boy, you can't guess how many times people have pulled off the highway to look at a UFO. There have been 3 or 4. Out in Michigan, we had 200 people 2 weeks ago. 200 people on Route 131 stopped on the side of the highway looking
yes,
at a huge triangle, and nobody got anybody else's license plate number. If you have a camera, most important is getting objective, indisputable evidence, and a good camera is the best way to do that. Camcorders, by the way, as I mentioned earlier, work extraordinarily well at night. The sensitive device that records the light is very sensitive under low light conditions if it's a good camcorder. So try to get some kind of photograph, and most important, this is very important, when you're looking at a strange object in the night sky, something you've never seen before, it is virtually impossible to tell how far away from you it is. You can't tell if it's 100 feet or 100 miles away from you.
All right.
And one of the effective tricks to find out where that object is to call somebody you might know in the area on the phone, or have somebody stand a good distance away from you, and everybody record the angle off the horizon. Is it very close to the horizon or overhead, for example, and also the magnetic heading to the object. And even though people don't have compasses, of course, carried
sure,
in their back pockets, they can mark where they were standing, and they can mark where the object was relative to an object on the horizon, a mountain, a tree, a telephone pole, something like that.
Sure.
They can go back the next day with a compass, and they can take a magnetic reading to the object. So most important is to record the facts, write them down, get a photograph, and either call the hotline if it's a current report, or put it in a written form and just mail it to us, and we would be more than grateful for any contributions from those
Dennis?
people.
I was wondering if you had any interesting stories as your tenure of Director of Investigations for MUFON.
Yeah. We've had a lot of interesting cases up here. I'm sort of a bookworm. I'm an academician by nature. I love to read. I hope when I die my body is cremated and they spread my ashes not out in some cold, dark, forbidding ocean. I want my ashes spread on bookshelves in a major library. That's where I feel at home.
Sure.
But I've made some interesting discoveries in old newspapers. This is something that your viewers might like to do if they have access to their grandmothers or great-grandmothers or fathers or family diaries, let's say. If it's appropriate for people to read those diaries, to go through them thinking about the UFO experience. Not too long ago, I discovered an article from a Tacoma, Washington newspaper. It's the 3rd of July, 1894, I'm sorry. It's a 100-year-old article about a group of fishermen who sailed out of Tacoma. They didn't have motorboats back then, of course. Sailed out of Tacoma on Puget Sound to go fishing. If people would like to send a self-addressed stamped envelope to my address up in Seattle, I will return to them this newspaper article. I guess it is from 1893. It's 101 years old.
And we have that post office box right now. Correct.
If they want to send me a self-addressed stamped envelope, I'll send them a legal-size piece of paper with this Tacoma, Washington article on it from 101 years ago.
Fantastic.
It's a group of fishermen who stumbled into a UFO that was so bright it was blinding. It shot bolts of blue water out of its mouth, and it paralyzed people in the group, and all sorts of things which today we're quite sure describe a UFO interaction.
And I also enjoy from those old reports the descriptions, like you said, where the technology wasn't around at the time, and their words for different things were much different.
Yes, that's right.
All right, Mr. Davenport, we're going to come to a close here. We want to thank you very much for coming on the program, giving us a little insight into your organization, the National UFO Reporting Center. Ladies and gentlemen, you can write to Mr. Peter Davenport. Only if recent sightings, please call this number for recent sightings. There is no other phone number to talk and chat. If you would like to talk and chat, get in touch with the Cosmic Connection. You may write to our post office box number that will be on the screen shortly. Also, Mr. Davenport, we also have a little pamphlet that we make available to the public called Aliens Over Oregon, and this pamphlet, this book, deals with the 2 weeks in July of 1947 before and after the Roswell crash of sightings in the Portland, Vancouver area.
Oh, that's
very interesting reading, and I think you would like a copy of this, and I will make arrangements to send you a copy of one of our
I would love
pamphlets.
to see a copy of that. I've gone through papers from 1947 looking for articles about UFOs, and they're everywhere.
Dennis compiled it, and it's outstanding.
Excellent.
Well, as a matter of fact, that's one of my specialties. I comb the archives of newspapers for that period because I've discovered that the 2 weeks before the crash was a very heavy period, especially up here in the Northwest, as opposed to the rest of the U.S. The rest of the U.S. during that 2 weeks did have sightings, but practically every day something was spotted up here in the Northwest. And I've combed the Seattle paper, the San Francisco paper, and the Hong Kong paper in search of these sightings. And as a matter of fact, any of our viewers that are out, say, in Pendleton or anywhere, if you would look through the newspaper clippings, you can go to the microfilm department and look through the last 2 weeks of June or the first 2 weeks of July for any UFO reports and send it to us. I'd appreciate it very much, and I'd be glad to send you a copy of our Aliens Over Oregon program.
That's great work, Dennis. I commend you.
He does outstanding work. He even went to the Republic of China. I believe hopefully he's been working a lot lately on other things and other interests. I've been promising our audience, an article, a pamphlet, book, what have you, of aliens over China. And I believe there's an aliens over San Francisco, I believe.
Yep, there are a few in Washington, D.C., too.
Yeah, I'd like to collect as many as I can from different areas, because what I've discovered is the more reports I've got, the clearer the picture of what was going on has started to emerge, of what the actual crafts look like and where they move from area to area, from time frame to time frame. As I'm sure you get a good sense of being in the sighting reporting business, from week to week, month to month, you must see the flaps moving from area to area.
Boy, that's the case. On the 18th of September, we watched a group of UFOs move all across the United States. We had 6 people in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, standing outside looking at 11 of them.
Wow.
It was fascinating. It was a real-time report. I've got it on tape.
Based on that, in the last month, or let's say a couple of months, where would you say the current hotbed of activity, or couple of hotbeds of activity, are?
From coast to coast.
Wow.
Wow.
Michigan, Maine, Texas, California, Oregon and Washington, Idaho, and we've taken alien reports from from Utah. About 6 weeks ago, a young girl was out driving in her little Japanese truck. The engine failed, the lights went out, and she said to herself, "Oh, well, there's some people standing over there. I'll be safe. I'll get some help from them."
Sure.
She estimated when they got close to her truck that they were between 10 and 12 feet tall.
Wow.
And one had to bend over at the waist to look through the driver's window. And she was so scared by it that her mother had to call to submit the report to the hotline.
Sure.
The daughter was unable to speak.
All right, well, Mr. Davenport, we want to thank you very much on behalf of the Portland audience and myself and the Cosmic Connection. Thank you very much. It's been a very fast hour, very informative, and we look forward to having you on as a guest on our program again.
I would welcome it, and thank you very much, Cosmo and Dennis and Jay, for your hospitality. I've enjoyed it as well.
Very welcome, sir. Thank you, and we will be in touch.
Very good. Thank you, and good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, Peter Davenport from the National UFO Reporting Center. Very, very fascinating. Also want to let you know our next program will be January 15th, 1995 at 6 o'clock. We're going to keep the same time slot, Channel 11 on the CAN network. I get 6 weeks off. I'm going to enjoy the holidays and watch some playoff action. Also, I see another ruffian here in the studio. I believe Jason from War Pigs has stopped by. Jason, my friend. Jason, my friend, thank you very much, my friend. Come on up here, pal.
How's it going, man?
Very good, very good. Now, I understand this is a very special occasion. You are the only second member of one of the local bands out of Portland that have been on the program. This is your second appearance.
Yep.
Jason, you play bass for the War Pigs ensemble. And I believe War Pigs specializes in the Black Sabbath music. You're playing, I believe you just played in a recent engagement with Yngwie Malmsteen.
Yeah.
And how did that go?
It was great.
And,
It was fun.
and where was that at?
Roseland.
The Roseland Theater. And how many people were there?
Probably, I don't know, about a couple hundred.
Couple hundred, absolutely. Fantastic. Excellent. Now, what's coming up, Jason?
Well, let's see, next Saturday we're playing a show at 60th and Gleason, the Moosehead.
Right.
Yeah, that'll be on at about 10 o'clock.
That's Steve Johns out there at the Moosehead Cafe,
Yeah,
right.
yeah. $5.
We can't mention any monetary happenings there, but that will be at the Moosehead. And what's the date of that?
That'll be the 3rd.
The 3rd. Okay, now that's the 3rd of December. Right. That'll be War Pigs. Will there be a warm-up band?
Yeah.
All right, all right. That's fine, that's fine. We'll find out later. And also, you're going to be playing at the Satyricon, is that correct?
Yeah, we're doing that the 6th of December.
The 6th of December, about 8 or 9 o'clock?
Yep.
Okay. And look right there. Well, okay, there he is. Tommy, where's Tommy at?
Tommy, he couldn't make it.
He couldn't make it. And all right, we have Todd, Jim, Tommy, and my friend Jason. Plays bass for War Pigs. Jason, I want to thank you very much for dropping by, giving some insight into the War Pigs itinerary. Thank you very much, my friend. Okay. And we look forward to seeing War Pigs out there at the date for the Moosehead Cafe again.
December 3rd.
December 3rd, and the Satyricon.
December 6th.
December 6th. Thank you very much.
You bet.
Thank you, my friend. We'll see you again. And have some of that fine Mexican cuisine. Did you try some of that?
Yeah.
Outstanding. And we'd also like to thank Roberto Aguilera and chef extraordinaire Alex Gonzalez of the La Costa Mexican restaurant, ladies and gentlemen, for feeding our crew, for taking care of some of the band members that drop by here every now and then. And they are out at 7425 Southwest Barber Boulevard, Portland, Oregon. Our next program is January 15th, 1995, 6 p.m., Channel 11. Jay, Dennis, I want to thank you very much, gentlemen, for being a part of this program.
If they'd like to
call in after the show.
If they'd like to contact us between now and the next show, they can, and they have a computer, they can call 771-9008.
On the BBS, 771-9008. Call us after the program at 667-7434. I can understand you want to maybe talk with some of our luminary guests here. Ladies and gentlemen, we will man the phones for 45 minutes after the program. Give us a call. Anything else to my controller? Papa Don, thank you very much, my friend. You've been instrumental for bringing Peter Davenport from the National UFO Reporting Center. Papa Don, thank you very much. My friend Billy Goodman, Soren, watch out for Soren. They're going to be out there. They're making their new albums. Let's hear a new cut from Soren. It's the, I believe this is From the Bottom of the Barrel. Ladies and gentlemen, Portland, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays, Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, Feliz Navidad.